Look, it's all good to talk about superheroes who hold themselves back, blah blah blah, to be good guys or whatever, but it's way cooler when you're a hero who does not pull your punches. I'm Adam Andrews with Top 10 Nerd, and this is the top 10 superheroes who never hold back their power. But first, let me know down in the comments below, what are your favorite moments when a goody two-shoes hero completely breaks their mold and goes all out? That'll be a fun one. And at number 10 is Red Hood. Now look, technically, things have changed for Red Hood recently as he has finally agreed to take a less lethal approach to crime fighting, which is why he is at the top of this list. But even though he doesn't bring people to the end of the line anymore, he still leaves them on the brink of the afterlife, and it's debatable whether that is actually necessary all of the time. But outside of his recent developments, Red Hood is an incredibly lethal hero, with almost no qualms about taking the lives of the criminals he faces. And that will be a running theme for pretty much all the heroes on this list. Jason Todd began his time as the replacement Robin, but he had nothing new to offer other than being a bit rebellious, so you guys, the fans, got him savagely taken down by the Joker. Good job. It's actually kind of funny though, because when DC brought him back as the Red Hood, everyone absolutely loved him. Now, he's the black sheep of the Bat family, wielding his dual blam blams and constantly going out of his way to subvert the patriarch of that costume family by going far above and beyond the necessary limits. And at number 9 is Rocket. Icon is quite possibly one of the strongest Superman-like characters in DC Comics, and he is, in my opinion, kinda way cooler. But Icon would have never become Icon if it wasn't for Raquel Irvin, a teenage girl who inspired Augustus Freeman IV to use his alien powers to become a hero. And while she had no natural powers of her own, she used an alien-created inertia belt to let her manipulate kinetic energy and to stand by his side as his sidekick, dubbing herself Rocket. As the human sidekick to an incredibly powerful alien superhero, Rocket needs to bring all the power she's got just to keep up. But on the side of being a superhero, Raquel is also an amateur writer, a high school student, and a single teen mom, all while living in the poorest crime-ridden neighborhood in Dakota, Paris Island. She does all that and has the power to punch dudes through brick walls. There was even a time that she absorbed the kinetic energy of falling out of a plane and used it to completely destroy a whole building in one punch. So now you know I wasn't joking about her giving it her all. Number 8, Rocket Racoon. From one rocket to another rocket. Only this rocket wields absolutely massive out-of-this-world weapons and is a 4-foot tall raccoon with exceptional tactical skill and a pretty creative potty mouth. Rocket the Raccoon has had a fairly messed up past, which I think is a common thread for heroes who don't really hold back. It gives them a bit of a cynical view of the world, most likely. Now Rocket comes from Half-World in the Keystone Quadrant star system. Here, a group of aliens built a massive insane asylum, which then had its funding cut, so they abandoned the project but left the patients with robot stewards to watch over them. Now these robot stewards became sentient thanks to a supernova, and so they genetically engineered the animal companions of these patients to do the job that they were supposed to do, providing them with tons of equipment, weapons, and toy parts. Now this is where Rocket comes from. Eventually, he went off Half-World and became an incredibly adept bounty hunter with Groot, and eventually joined the Guardians of the Galaxy when Peter Quill put them together to face the Phalanx invasion. Being a little tiny raccoon means Rocket has got to compensate, and he does that by being exceedingly good at his job and going completely all out on his enemies. In at number 7, Ghostmaker. In the same vein as Red Hood, Minoka Khan, or Ghostmaker, is another Batman adjacent hero with absolutely zero issue with using his katanas, or pretty much anything he can find, to usher criminals into the underworld. The difference here is that Ghostmaker is practically on the same level of proficiency as Batman himself. Bruce Wayne and Khan have trained under many of the same mentors and at the same time, being rivals since they were in their teens. Where Batman sees crime fighting as a duty that he needs to perform, Ghostmaker sees it as an art, and this difference has caused them to go head to head on multiple occasions and eventually led them to vowing to just stay the heck out of each other's way. As Ghostmaker sees this as an art, he never holds back because he's constantly trying to one-up both himself and everyone else, and I mean honestly, he's really freaking good at it. He has even gone into Gotham to clean up the messes that Batman couldn't handle, which is a controversial statement to make, but we can talk about that in the comments down below. Also, Ghostmaker Troublemaker is kind of hilarious. If you want to know what I mean, go read the comics where he is put in charge of Batman Incorporated. He's ruthless. And at number 6 is Hawkeye. Hawkeye makes this list for a very good reason. He fights alongside the Avengers, the world's mightiest heroes, and as Jeremy Renner made note of in Avengers Age of Ultron, he is a guy with a bow and an arrow. Hawkeye needs to constantly perform at the peak of his game and keep himself in peak physical condition just to keep up with his allies. And all the heroes want him on their side because they know he does actually deliver on that. But that's alongside the fact that he is constantly dealing with angry exes. Also, Hawkeye was originally and occasionally an assassin. Not holding back is part of his job description, which is why he was tasked by Bruce Banner with completely assassinating the guy while he was the Hulk by flinging an arrow into his eyeball. Sure, he felt incredibly guilty for this, but Hawkeye, an incredibly capable human, was the one who actually took the life of the Hulk. You can't do that and be holding back. And at number 5 is Moonknight. Before Mark Spector ever became Moonknight, he was already not entirely a great person. He was shady for sure, as he was part of the CIA, but also put himself in illegal fights and weapon smuggling schemes, and he was even put on trial for taking out the president of a South American country. He worked as a mercenary, and it was one of the few heroic acts that he did, protecting an archaeologist's daughter, that got him mortally wounded and then revived by the ancient Egyptian god Khonshu in exchange for his servitude. Now, as the Fist of Khonshu, Mark would beat down criminals in the middle of the night while also living 3 other lives with separate personalities. Even though Mark is an Avenger, he consistently takes on his hero work by himself and constantly goes all out on the criminals he finds. Now, due to his split personalities, it's a little difficult for anyone, even himself, to say what he's actually capable of. Where one personality would never do something, another would do absolutely anything. And then there's also the influence of Khonshu that has made Mark abandon people to go and fight whatever battle Khonshu needs him for. Like when Moon Knight needed to fight the Hell Lord Mephisto when he wanted to take over the world. This street level hero took on a Hell Lord. You see what I'm saying here? But more than that, Moon Knight has been able to actually beat all the Avengers and has even been infused with the Phoenix Force. There's a reason that he's one of my favorite superheroes. Number 4, Midnighter. For Midnighter, the thing that makes me say he doesn't hold back is his use of his survival implants. These implants let Midnighter completely and flawlessly regenerate from any injury and give him a super enhanced immune system, which has allowed the guy to fight with a broken neck and other broken bones, actual holes in his chest, and while being set completely on fire. Not to mention, he's fought after contracting pretty damaging viruses, including AIDS. He can also do this because one of his other implants allows him to turn his pain receptors completely off, allowing him to fight when the pain of his injuries would stop a normal person. It's also meant that he's been able to be completely awake and alert while he was undergoing major surgery, and that's pretty intense. The last of his implants grants him environmental adaptation, which allows him to survive self-sufficiently and without sustenance for indefinite periods of time in places like the vacuum of space. Now take all that and grant it to a guy who has absolutely no issue turning criminals into a bloody pulp, and you've got a recipe for someone who never holds back. And at number 3 is Superior Spider-Man. Now, while it is totally true that Spider-Man himself is known to hold back his power and pull his punches, because you know, greater power, yada yada, great responsibility, that thing, this was not the case when his body was taken over by one of his greatest villains, Dr. Octopus. When Doc took over the body of Peter Parker, he unsurprisingly was not only unaware of the amount of strength Peter actually had, but he was also, unsurprisingly, morally ambiguous with his use of that power. What do I mean by that? Well, the Superior Spider-Man is pretty well remembered for a little thing that happened when he fought against Scorpion and completely punched the villain's jaw clean off of his face, ending his life instantly. There was also the time he went up against Jester and Screwball, 2 unpowered villains who commit crimes just for the thrill of it. For these 2 villains, Spider-Ock, or Spock here, used his fist to turn them into unconscious bloody messes. Spock also led an army of henchmen against Kingpin's base of operations and completely leveled it to the ground, completely destroyed the robot body of the Spider Slayer and then mocks him, and he also completely knocked out Wolverine in just 2 hits for touching him. Hilarious. And at number 2 is Wolverine. If Andrew was here right now, he could probably go on a rant about how Wolverine notoriously consistently chooses the path of most resistance simply to show how tough he is. And yeah, the guy has an adamantium skeleton, one of the strongest healing factors in comic books, and his powers can't exactly get out of control, so he has almost no reason to hold back at all. He is well known for being one of the wildest, most ferocious fighters in the Marvel landscape. No one wants to face this guy, as almost completely guaranteed to end in their loss, if not their certain demise. In the Age of Ultron story, for example, his very first solution to solve the problem of Ultron was to just go back in time and end Hank Pym's life before he could create the insane robot, which actually would result in a much worse timeline. Or there's Old Man Logan, when the villains coordinated an attack against the heroes and Wolverine thought he completely decimated a large group of villains when he actually took out every single one of the X-Men. The villains took advantage of the fact that Wolverine doesn't hold back to make him destroy his own teammates. It's a well-known fact that James Howlett very rarely holds back. And in at number 1 is the Punisher. I don't even really need to explain this one. Punisher is like the black sheep among all the heroes and even the anti-heroes. He very much toes the line of being a complete villain. Sure, his targets are almost always criminals and villains, but sometimes they haven't been at all. Frank Castle took the life of Captain America as an example. He's famously the Marvel Universe, and he did that while having the same handicap that Hawkeye possesses, the fact that he's just a guy with an absolutely insane arsenal that he is not even slightly afraid to use. And if he ain't using his weapons, then he will use whatever else he has, including his own fists. There was even a time that Frank Castle in the 616 continuity used a steamroller to completely crush and flatten Wolverine in an incredibly overly aggressive comic. What am I saying? Almost every comic with Frank Castle in it is overly aggressive. During Civil War, Frank instantly ended the lives of 2 villains who were on his side as soon as he saw them. He doesn't hold back ever. Well, that's all the time we've got for today. I've been Adam Andrews, this is Top 10 Nerd, and I'll catch y'all on the flippy flop. Peace out, nerds.